I create things that I want to see in the world, and I'm curious about what they're going to look like. And I won't know if I like them or not until I make them. It's so hard to express what you want to express in words, and I think that's one thing that really drew me to being a visual artist in the beginning, was that I didn't have to try to explain myself. I could just make. When you're working with hot glass, you have to be in the moment, like every bit of the way. You can't lose your concentration. You have to just keep going. It's just a beautiful rhythm that you get into when you work. It's like everything else disappears. It's dangerous, and it's hot, and it's fast, it's fluid, and it's really challenging. And I love that about glass. Coming up with new ideas and new forms and new patterns, new designs, I feel like it's boundless. I'm developing a new direction in my work with the wall panels. The process is somewhat unusual. It's a new way of working for me, but it's actually an old technique for making window pane glass. What I do is I start out with a pattern of cane or marini, and then I roll it up and blow it into a cylinder. There's so much planning that goes into my work, but one thing about glass that doesn't happen probably in any other medium is the unexplained. Something will happen, and you have to be able to react to what's happening with the glass. It can take different turns. It can take you through a journey that you didn't expect to go on. It's the last finishing parts of the piece that I want to be exactly perfect. And sometimes it will drive my team crazy because I will take as long as I have to make it right. The panels are a new thing for me, and I started thinking about like making a book of just the pattern work that I do on my pieces, on my sculptures. And then I thought about, well, why not make the sketchbook on the wall? You know, why don't I bring those pages to life with my cane work and just work in a new way? They feel like drawings because obviously they're two-dimensional, you know, they're flat, but they still have the qualities of glass that I love. They still have like those unexpected moments. You go through the day and you see things, you observe things, and it's all information that gets stored in you. And then you start to translate the things that inspire you, the things that stand out in the day. And sometimes you never know what your inspiration's going to be, and then it comes out in certain ways. I love looking at different patterns. I think about the relationship between cane, stringers, marini, and how they relate to fabrics. A really well-cut suit and a beautiful dress, the way it flows, things like that really inspire me. I think about the patterns and how I see them moving on glass. I also really like to look at the imperfections in a weave, or like the jagged edge where it's been ripped off. It's like could be a hole in the fabric, something that has been distressed. You can make a very precise pattern with cane. And I enjoy doing that. But I find it to be much more interesting when there's some distress or there's like, you know, the mark of the artist in there.
I like the idea of the piece changing from three-dimensional into two-dimensional. There's something really interesting that happens because there's so much movement in the glass. The cane is constantly moving and stretching and expanding. I have a pretty good idea of what I'm gonna get, but there's always an element of surprise when I see the piece opened. I'd say one thing I really strive for in my work is synergy and balance. Whether it's between the pattern that I put on a form in my sculptures or the relationship between one panel to the next.
As soon as I saw somebody blowing glass, I knew that that's what I wanted to do. But I didn't want to just be good at it. I wanted to be really good at it. And so I immediately set up a high standard for myself. And I put myself into positions where, you know, I learned from one of the greatest glass artists in the world, Lino Tagliapietra. You know, I have my own team now, and I have my own practice, and I bring those high standards to my own practice. To make what I want to make, I need a really great team, a team that I can rely on, a team that, you know, is just as excited as I am to be in the hot shop, and a team that wants to see me succeed. It's really amazing, like choreographing a team to make your work, help you to see your vision come true, come alive. It's every day, all the time, constantly evolving. Sometimes you don't know what's next until it hits you.
I think art is both a question and an answer. We ask the question, what if? And we answer that question through the process of making. I really like that.
So I'm from the East Coast originally, and now I live in Seattle, but I'm from Peabody, Massachusetts, and I can really get my accent going. If you want it to come out, it can come out. It's really such an honor to be here today to share with you. So after high school, I was a self-taught graphic designer. I did everything by hand. This was pre-computer days. And I worked at various silk screening companies on the North Shore. We did band logos, and I did some work for Faneuil Hall. And I was also a pizza maker and a roadie for a band called the Nervous Eaters, and they were an 80s band. Look at those outfits, pretty good. In the late 80s, I decided to make a huge change in my life, and I applied to Massachusetts College of Art. I wanted to learn how to be, I wanted to major in graphic design, and I knew I needed to learn how to use the computer to be competitive in my field. So I applied to Mass Art, and I got in, and I soon discovered the ceramics room. I took a computer class and I took a ceramics class, and I loved ceramics. I loved the idea of working three-dimensionally, working with my hands. And it was it was kind of a game changer for me. Going from sitting at a desk and doing the design work to then going in and like kind of playing with mud. I was like, this is great. And then one day I was walking around the campus and I opened the door to the glass blowing shop. And all the lights were out, and this tall, slender woman was rolling a big blob of molten material on the marble, and I was like, what is that? So I ran back to my friends and asked them what they were doing in there, and they said, oh, that's glass blowing, you would love it. And they were right. So from the moment I took my first gather and burned my little arm off, I was like, this is what I want to do. So I was about 30 at the time, and I knew that glass blowing looked really hard. So I set my sights high, and I wanted to learn from the best. So I was really fortunate to get into a class taught by Lino Tagliapietra at the Corning Museum, and it changed my life. Watching Lino work was like watching a magician. So when I told Lino I wanted to be a great glass blower, he advised me to move to Seattle, and he also got me a job working in a factory where he would go and make his work, and he told me I could be on his team, which I was like, wow, really? I didn't believe him, but it was true. So I packed up my belongings and I moved to Seattle, the land of glass. I worked at a factory called Manifesto, and I was low man on the totem pole. I was like cleaning the bathrooms and doing all the odd jobs. And after about 2 years, I became one of the lead gaffers in the shop. And this is one of the lights that I specialized in making, and I probably made about 1 million of these. Also, when Lino came to town, I got to work on his team, and this was a dream come true for me. I learned so many techniques from Lino, but really the most important thing I learned from him was to push myself and to find my own voice. And watching Lino work and seeing him innovate with the Venetian techniques made a lasting impression on me. I had a great opportunity to work with him for 19 years. I've recently retired from his team 3 years ago. I thought I would go to the end with him, but he just keeps going. Yeah, and I got really busy with my own career. And one thing that I think about, I had such a gift to learn so many Venetian techniques, and I really want to give that back too. So I travel the world and I teach and I do demonstrations and try to inspire the younger generation and keep the Venetian techniques alive and well. So the next few images, or the next images that you'll see, I'm going to show images of works that inspire me, different artists, and my own work and my influences. And I've always been drawn to cartoons, comic books, graphics, murals. As a kid, I loved to watch anything that had to do with the superheroes. I love their tight costumes and their flowing capes and the bold graphics in their costumes. So I decided to do a series based on the superheroes' costumes. And this is my version of Batman and Robin. And I use an encalmo technique for these wide color bands. They're bold, they're dangerous, and they're large. And here's another one inspired by Storm from the X-Men. And then I put this one in for scale. So you can see they are quite large, and I need an amazing team. As you saw in the video, I always get welled up when I see my team because they help me so much, and without them, I wouldn't be able to do what I do, especially as easily, well, not easily, but at the caliber that I do it in. So sometimes you come across something in your day-to-day life. I was teaching a class at Haystack Mountain School, and I look for inspiration in different places, but one day I was in the library, and I came across this book of tops, and I just thought, wow, this would be such a great shape, and it's so fitting because, you know, you're always turning on the pipe, so I'd be like spinning the tops every time I make one. I love this series, and it was probably one of my first series that people really kind of gravitated to. So here's one of my tops. This one's called Pop Top. And I'm using a variety of flat canes and round canes and creating movement with the twisting. And these are probably about 18 by 18 by maybe 24 inches. They're pretty good size. Not as big as the superheroes, but they're good. I love toys and games, so this series was right up my alley. And I never run out of ideas for things to put on these pieces. Rainbow patterns are a recurring theme in my work. It's a symbol of diversity and freedom, and I've always loved the rainbow for its magic and beauty. I thought that the rainbow would be a great fit on this next series that I'm going to share with you of the clouds. And I just want to explain a little bit about cane. So I use a lot of Venetian techniques in my work, and cane are, they're kind of rods of color that you can stretch. It's like pulling taffy, and you can do various colors of canes and sizes and thicknesses. So on this palette, you can see the cane is lined up on the left over there in a rainbow pattern, and in a lot of my work, I do layers of patterning, so it gives the work more depth. And then here you'll see the finished piece. It's called Kaleidoscope Cloud. And there's lenses carved into this to give it even a little bit more depth. And I like how there's a little termination of the swirl in just the right spot. Here's another kind of cane that I like to use, and it's known as Inferico cane, and it's a twisted cane. And what I'm doing here is I'm twisting the cane in one direction for one pull, and then I twist it the opposite direction for the other pull, and then when I lay it out, it kind of gives you the illusion of a herringbone pattern. This is cappuccino and macchiato cloud. But here I've twisted it and I've changed the orientation, and it kind of gives the illusion of a storm cloud coming. It's the eye of the storm. Another great inspiration for me came from Oscar Schlemmer's Triadic Ballet from 1926, and this is from the Bauhaus era. And I love looking at these costumes. It makes the dancers into moving sculptures. It's kind of a low-tech geometric costume. And the Bauhaus was so amazing, and it's just a wealth of inspirations. And this piece I feel like could fit right in with that Triadic Ballet. This is called The Robber, and I have been working on a series of snowmen. When I got asked to do a residency at the Museum of Glass, I really wanted to get everybody involved, and what better way than making a snowman? It's so primal and it's so fun. So I had the whole shop working. We had about 9 people working on the snowman. And here's the finished piece. And that snowman actually rocks too, and it's very disturbing. You give it a little push and people are like, oh my God. Yeah, and the snowman's gonna be traveling in a very prestigious show coming up in 2020, starting in Venice, Italy. You know, his little bowler hat. Yeah. There's Calvin. And then on the left, that's Mr. Big Stuff. Yep. So there's a relationship with the way I look at textiles and the way I think about glass. I see parallels between the lines of fabric and the possibilities of cane, roller wraps, and stringers. This is from my series called Palomas. This one's called Bengal Paloma, inspired by the Bengal tiger's colors. And here you can see the woven effects done with cane and roller wraps. And I love like that sort of distress that you see with the breaking up of the lines. That's what really interests me. This one's Nikita. And I draw inspiration from pop culture, fashion, and different color combinations. Okay, the next 4 slides that I'm going to show you are some images of works that Carla and Richard commissioned me to do in 2011. And I did a number of orbs. I think there was 9 orbs. And I had just started creating this new series, so I was thrilled to get the opportunity to develop these works further. The orbs are basically a spherical shape that make a great canvas for colors and lines. I layer the canes in splashes of color, then twist them and fold them and the patterns to create a complex movement in the piece. I loved working with you guys, by the way. It was really fun because they had some specific colors that they wanted to see together, and also they really pushed me in the scale of these pieces, so thank you for that. It's really key to have support for artists to help them to further advance in their different styles of working, and really sometimes it can really push an artist to do something that's like a little bit out of the boundaries of what they think that they can do. So it's a really great thing to do. And of course, glass blowing is really expensive. So, you know, it's hard to give yourself that freedom to really push your work. And that's why commissions are great, residencies are great. It's really an opportunity for artists to be able to continue on with their work and really experiment. And this is my first time here at Seven Bridges, and I am just blown away. Okay. This is the coolest setting I have ever done a lecture in.
Thank you.
Yes, no, thank you. Thank you. It's an honor to be part of this, so thank you. So I've continued and expand on this series called Orbs. This is a pretty new piece. It's called Apricot Shimmer Orb. And it's hard to see in the photo. You see it's got some great visuals, but when you walk around it, it really shimmers. It's almost like a disco ball. And one thing that I love about glass blowing is I see so much movement in the glass when I'm making it. So for you guys, I made this piece so you could get that movement too. All you got to do is walk around them. I started playing around with a new technique a few years ago, and it's these little bits of cane that you see on the surface of these pieces, and I call them anemones. So I make a veiled cane, and then I chop it up, and I make a mosaic. I'll probably lose all of you on this explanation, but anyway, it's a really great technique. I wasn't sure that I would be able to do it successfully, so the first time I rolled these canes up and made a piece out of them, I was really excited about the results. And on this creation, I'm using the same technique, only I turn the little bits sideways. And so it gives you a totally different feel. I've also started playing around with color fades and putting colors together. It's almost like if you're a painter and you squeeze the tube of color out. Like rarely does a painter just use that color right out of the tube. They mix. So here I'm able to start to mix my colors and create like a totally different color palette. I love the colors in this piece. And you can also see that there's a lot of depth going on in these too. So there's basically 4 layers of different things going on in this piece. Oh, the title of that one was Embers Droplet. And the title of this piece is called Reverie Droplet. You can also see there's a different sort of finish on these pieces. Like it goes from a really shiny, most of the work that you saw prior to these droplets was very shiny. And these have more of a matte surface. It's very, It's very tactile and very soft. And also, what I do is I sandblast the piece and then I hand sand them with different grits. And I have to hand sand them so I don't lose the texture on the pieces. It's a labor of love, but it is so worth it. You just want to touch the surface because it's one of the softest things you've ever felt. This one's called Kiwi Droplet. The inspiration for these was I was thinking about, I always loved like the shape of a water drop. It's such a beautiful, can be so elegant. And I was thinking about putting it under a microscope. What would I see? And for me, I've created this little world because I didn't have a microscope. So I thought this would be easier for me to see my own little world created on the surface of these pieces. So the next two images I'll show are two of my favorite artists. This is Agnes Martin's Wood one from 1963. And the first time I saw Martin's work was in the Microsoft collection. She had a series of 10 by 10 drawings of grids. These drawings seem so simple, yet they were so complete. Her work has a quietness and contemplativeness that I strive for in my work, sometimes. This is the work of Saul LeWitt. He is an amazing, amazing artist. If you haven't been to Mass MoCA, you should check out Mass MoCA because there are so many amazing murals done by Saul LeWitt. And for me, I could have chose so many images of his work, but for me, this talks to my love of graphics, both color and black and white. And in the next series, you'll see what I'm talking about with the black and white. So, as you saw in my video, I've started a new series of wall panels. And one of the reasons I made the video is because it's hard to explain how the panels are made. And most people think that they're slumped, they're fused glass. But actually, I'm blowing a cylinder, cutting it open, and opening them up hot. And I love that process because you get so much movement from the glass and in the way that the glass moves and shifts, and there's so many things that are like really great surprises. This is my first wall installation. It's called Quilt, and that was 2 years ago. And I've been developing the panels, and one thing that I have found really interesting is like how much dimensionality you can get on a flat surface. I mean, it looks three-dimensional in so many ways. And it's just so, it's like, also I strive in my work, like with the sculptural work, I'm always interested in marrying the patterning on the surface to the form. And with these pieces, I have so many ideas of how to work with cane in different ways. It's a great way. I don't have to like think about the form. I can just make the cylinder, and then I have these panels that I can play around with and organize. This installation is called Zoids, and I'm introducing color to these series. I've just started, this is a brand new installation, and I've just kind of started with these different blues and color fades, and the Zoids are the line work that you see, and it's kind of a freestyle of applying the color. It's really quite fun, and I think it's a pretty unique way of working. It's very painterly to me. I presented this installation at SOFA last year, and as I said in the video, I like to think about the relationship between the panels, and it brings your eye, I try to get it so your eye just travels around the installation, and you can pick out different things, and there's relationships from panels to panels. These are gold leaf inlays in the glass. They're blown, and I make these little pucks of gold that I roll up, and then as they expand, they like create this beautiful surface. Yeah, these are new pieces for me too. I've been doing quite a few new works. Obviously, I love blowing glass. It's one of my favorite things to do. I don't consider it work, although it is hard work, and I come home exhausted and sweaty, but there's nothing like it. And I'm really fortunate to be able to travel around the world. I get invited to different places. Like in October, I'm going to France to do demonstrations there, and here I'm with a group of people in North Carolina. I was doing a project I was commissioned by the Mint Museum to do a installation for their permanent collection. And so I've made all the cylinders in North Carolina and worked with their great team. And here is the finished piece. And it was inspired by the historical textile industry of North Carolina. So that was right up my alley. I'm really excited about this piece. And I was so proud to walk in to see it in their permanent collection. And this is a new multi-panel installation called Linnea. And grouping allows me to highlight the ideas of multiplicity and variation. In this case, different types of lines: thick, thin, opaque, translucent, embedded, and raised. This piece will also be a part of that traveling show with the snowman. And they're also taking a droplet along with them, so I'm going to have good representation. And I'm going to finish up with the last two slides. This is an image of my studio. I am so lucky. I live in Seattle, Washington, and this is my beautiful studio that I get to think about what I'm going to create next in. And I want to thank my wife, Julia, who has been so supportive and a key to my success as an artist. We have a wonderful life in Seattle, and if you ever come out, look me up. Would like to see you. So thank you very much. Thank you for coming out.